sexually transmitted infection every 3.5 seconds.
Most dangerous complication is death.
This is basically a global problem.
50% of adults started the crimes at their adolescence.
They can even have suicidal tendencies.
Sexually transmitted infections, according to WHO, is alarming.
Bipolar depressive disorder mania.
Juveniles were arrested for approximately 12.4% of rapes in 2001.
14th Feb has already been globally started as celebration of Parents Worship Day. In year 2014, BBC published news where #Parents Worship Day was trending globally all over Twitter.
Today we are going to tell you how Valentine's Day is commercialized by sex industrial complex.
Exactly. And today's Valentine's Day is celebrated more in the form of sex rather than emotions, which leads to lack of commitment in relationship, a fashion of losing virginity, increased rape cases, and eventually leading to multiple sexual diseases.
As you all know that we are surrounded with traditions, cultures and ethics that we inherit from our parents. The connection and emotion that we share with our parents is of true love.
Worshipping parents has lot of benefits on the child's mental, physical, emotional, educational, spiritual, social, moral, medical and psychological health.
On Earth, there are several species where essential information are biologically transformed from one generation to other generation. But humans are treated as intellect species, as after the birth they gather the information from their present environment and circumstances by using their brain, which develops from age to age and can think and act and can form colonies called societies and country. The humans formed cultural behavior and traditional codes on basis of scientific studies to make things favorable for the whole life cycle and for upcoming generation. Every religion in the world has set up these traditional codes, like in Sanatan Dharma, Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanprastha and Sannyas Ashram. Like in Christianity, temperance, prudence, fortitude and justice. Christianity derives the three theological virtues of faith, hope and charity. Like in Roman, fides, pietas, religia, cultus, disciplina. Likewise in Islam, worship God, be kind, honorable and humble to parents. Do not commit adultery, do not kill unjustly. These codes were scientific to form civilized society. As humans are dragged away from their cultural values, they are leading more towards the destructions.
Students flooded into nearby hospitals at the Lady Reading.
The basic human values are getting destroyed. According to Innocenti report, the weakening of traditional attitude has combined with commercial pressure to create more sexualized societies. This commercial pressure is the sex industrial complex. The covered faces of commercial products like sex enhancement supplements, sex toys, porn contents, and all those who wants to target teenagers and make fortune out of it. We as a society at large should understand that celebration and promotion of Valentine's Day is nothing but encouraging kids to get into a zone where they don't know where their life is leading to. Roses are red, violets are blue. I have an STD, now so do you. Valentine's Day has raised many burning issues in Western countries like STDs, teenage pregnancies and many more, which are heavily spreading in Asian countries also. This love, lust and sex is all about your hormones. So what exactly happens that makes whole of your body go haywire?
Romantic love, there are three things going on. One is lust, which is the sexual gratification which individuals seek for. Second is the attraction. It involves three main chemicals, which we also call as neurotransmitters because they are released in the brain. And prominent among them are three: dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. And the third part of the romantic love is the attachment, which often happens like between husband and wife because they are attached to each other. It again may or may not happen in teenagers who are engaging in sexual activity. And different parts of the brain are involved in that. For attachment specifically, oxytocin is the chemical which is released in the brain, which makes a person attached to another. Now, in these college-going individuals or kids, their prefrontal cortex is not developed. They don't have the way to think right and wrong. And they are engaging in sexual behavior. They get attached to one person, just because of those chemicals. And the other person may not be interested. He's just seeking instant pleasure. And after that, they split because they are not considering long-term relationship. So it has fueled a mental health crisis in college-going kids. Also, it has led to more substance use problems, kids engaging in smoking, drinking, binge drinking, trying illicit drugs like cocaine, heroin, and so forth. So I think neuroscientifically, if you look at the adolescent brain is overall immature and is not at the right juncture to take that vital decision of who should be my partner, who should be not. I think one thing I want to stress on is that sex may be casual in nature, but it is not casual in consequences.
Is adolescents' brain mature enough to take important decisions in their life?
Myelination starts at the back of the brain and works its way forward. So the last area to mature is this, our PFC, the decision-making center, which is why teenagers are bad at making decisions.
Dr. Adriana Galvin conducted an experiment to study the teenager's brain. She found the teenager's brain is more activated and responsive than adults if they get any reward. How as a teenager your brain can be biased in decision making? So one must understand the impact that it has on our actions. How would you feel if your mom appreciates you for A grade in drawings? How would you feel if your dad brings you a favorite sport kit? Is it not fascinating? Yes, it is. So every positive emotion is going to be multifold when you are appreciated and pampered as a teen. An experiment with the help of aura scanner showed an astounding results for 4 different subjects. Aura scanner read the changing aura energy pre and post Valentine's proposals. Original aura dropped from average 60 to 70% to 8 to 10% on just dramatical celebration of Valentine's Day, whereas it increased up to average 90% to 100% for 4 different subjects after worshipping parents. Mr. Hira Thaparia explains how parents create a circuit of positive energy around their kids.
When you are worshipping, as I have shown you an aura, I will show you one aura where a child is touching the feet of parent and how the energy shifts over there. You can see. This is the aura photograph of a mother and a child. As soon as the child touches the feet of mother, the aura of mother envelops the child. So any problem, if any problem is there with the child, that goes out. Because that powerful aura comes over there and cures it.
according to you, worshipping of the parents should be done?
It should be done, because when you touch from your cross hands to parents' feet, the energy moves in the 8th circle, and with the 8th circle you get the biggest energy, and you can become very powerful in studies as well as in mental level, emotional level. In all the levels you become more perfect.
According to Mr. Taparia, when two people come into contact, their auras are intermingled. Likewise, he explained how parents can help their kids learn subjects with this energy exchange. The world is already facing serious issues of teenage pregnancy. STIs are leading to broken families and teen mothers' colonies. Western countries are failing to find solutions to resolve it. It testifies that Valentine's Day celebration has been a significant contributor to the state of Western society. We must understand and learn from others' mistakes. What US is facing today is the result of Valentine's practice that they followed from last several years, or maybe 2 or more decades, or more than that. But Asian countries still have a chance to learn and be aware of all the hazards. In US and Western countries, teen pregnancy and STIs are the worst issues. Let's have a look at the problems related to STIs backed by WHO data and doctors.
More than 1 million sexually transmitted infections are acquired every day worldwide. Let me show you with the graph. Here is the y-axis, which tells you the total number of population. Here is the x-axis, which tells you the type of disease. Each year, there are an estimated of 357 million new infections, with 1 of 4 sexually transmitted infections, like chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, and trichomonasis. More than 500 million people are estimated to have genital infection with herpes simplex virus, which is also known as HSV. More than 290 million women have HPV, which is also known as human papilloma virus. The majority of sexually transmitted infections have no symptoms or only mild symptoms that may not be recognized as in sexually transmitted infections.
STIs such as HSV type 2 and syphilis can increase the risk of HIV acquisition. Over 9 lakh pregnant women were infected with syphilis, resulting in approximately 3,50,000 adverse birth outcomes and stillbirth in 2012. In some cases, STIs can have a serious reproductive health consequences, which is beyond the immediate impact of the infection itself, like infertility or mother-to-child transmission. Drug resistance, especially for gonorrhea, is a major threat to reducing the impact of STIs worldwide.
Dr. Anubhav explains the growth in STIs during Valentine's Day.
These STDs are mainly seen in people who are 18 years and younger. That is not very surprising to me, thinking about their brain structure, which according to UNICEF is still undergoing development, and they do not have decision-making capacity when they engage in sexual activity.
The human immune deficiency virus, HIV. 36.7 million people are living with HIV globally. 30% don't know their status.
Let me show you the graph which shows the number of people living with HIV 2016 global. For Middle East and North Africa, 230,000. For East Europe and Central Asia, 1.6 million. For Latin America and Caribbean, 2.1 million. For Western and Central Europe and Latin America, 2.1 million. For Asia and Pacific, 5.1 million. For Western and Central Africa, 6.1 million.
For Eastern and Southern Africa, 19.4 million.
1.8 million people newly infected in 2016 globally.
The HIV pandemic is most severe in sub-Sahara Africa. Over 60% of all people living with HIV/AIDS reside within the region. Adult HIV prevalence exceeds 20% in Swaziland, Botswana and Lesotho, while an additional 6 countries report adult HIV prevalence of at least 10%. Outside Africa, the highest prevalence rate is found in Bahamas, which is 3.3%. In absolute numbers, South Africa 7.1 million, followed by Nigeria, which is 3.2 million, and India, which is 2.1 million, had the highest HIV/AIDS number of cases by the end of 2016. While South Africa's large population of HIV-positive people is attributable to its high disease prevalence rate, which is 18.9% and one of the highest in the world, whereas Nigeria is lower at 2.9% and India's prevalence at 0.3% is comparable to Canada, the UK and lower than the United States. On the other end of the spectrum, Svalbard is reported as having no cases of HIV/AIDS, while Bhutan has a much larger population but still only an estimated 246 cases through 2011.
Apart from HIV, the other 2 major diseases, syphilis and gonorrhea. In syphilis, if spinal cord is attacked, the victim becomes crippled. If syphilis attacks the eyes, result is blindness. The brain, insanity. The large blood vessels, death. During pregnancy, an unborn child can be infected and permanently deformed by syphilis. Syphilis rates by age group and sex. And chlamydia rates by sex. Though bacterial and viral STIs are curable and can be prevented, still 291 million of HPV, which causes cervical cancer, 470 million cases in 2012 recorded in UNICEF report 2012.
The global burden of both bacterial and viral sexually transmitted infections, according to WHO, is alarming. From CDC, where CDC suggests that there are about 2.3 million cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea and syphilis in US in 2017. This surpassed the previous record set in 2016 by more than 200,000 cases, and it was the 4th consecutive year that STDs have been increasing. STDs are strained to near breaking point.
I was doing research on the history of sex education, and I came across the fact that in the 60s, it was widely believed by medical experts that we had seen the end of sexually transmitted infections. And that was because the 2 major ones at the time, gonorrhea and syphilis, now mind you, this was before the HIV epidemic, it was before herpes and the human papilloma were epidemic proportions, and it was following, it was at a time when antibiotics cured syphilis and gonorrhea with just 1 shot. The winner of the Nobel Prize in Medicine, 1960, announced we are seeing we are reaching a time when infectious disease will no longer be an issue for us.
Condoms and oral contraceptive pills they does not give 100% protection against sexual transmitted diseases. Up to 10 to 20% of failure of condoms can cause sexually transmitted disease. Not only sexually transmitted disease, but also can cause unwanted teenage pregnancies.
With teenagers who, number 1, are less experienced, less responsible, more likely to use condoms incorrectly, that more likely to have sex after drinking or using drugs. The number is going to be below 85%.
Further, STIs are such a big issue that one may not be successful in avoiding it. Dr. Mariam Grossman was of the view that certain faulty ideas are institutionalized about safe sex and is harder to challenge that even if we have science to back up.
There was a meeting that was held about 10 years ago by the National Institute of Health in near Washington, D.C. to specifically answer the question of how effective are condoms in preventing sexually transmitted infections. And a group of experts met for a week to discuss just that. And I'll tell you what their answer was. Their answer was, it depends.
Condoms can't prevent all STIs.
Now, condom does not cover all of the skin. It covers only certain part of your genitalia. So the skin, for example, the surrounding skin of your groin, inner thighs, those are not covered. And so the transmission of genital warts can still happen. And I also want to let you know that the causative agent of genital warts is human papillomavirus. It's also the most common cause of cervical cancer. And cervical cancer in India is the #1 cancer in women, causing death and leading to morbidity.
STIs get transmitted even after the use of contraceptives and condoms. STIs are transmitted by two modes, either by bacteria or through virus. Some through discharged fluids and some through skin contact.
And condoms are...
These failed contraceptives and condoms are creating new victims every day. Ask these victims what Valentine's Day has gifted them for life. Teen pregnancies? USA is facing lot of such problems apart from STIs. Teenage pregnancy is another burning issue.
The teenage girls, when they got pregnant, what are the medical risks to them?
World Health Organization has estimated that there are approximately 16 million girls between age of 15 to 19 years, and at least 1 million of them get pregnant every year.
Teenage is a growing age. That means the growth of child normally every year they increase in height of 5 centimeter. But during this teenage, this height may increase from 10 to 15 centimeter in girls. So this will hamper the growth. That will lead to anemia and lot of nutritional deficiency. Most commonly, we get vitamin D deficiency, calcium deficiency, and iron deficiency. All these can lead to low birth weight of the baby. And second is abortion and premature birth.
Teenage characteristics of the hormonal risk, the hormonal excitement, the hormonal pleasures, and lack of control on the hormonal pleasure. Also the half-baked knowledge of how to abort. That I know that 3 of my clients tell me they are in class 8 and they carry an eye pill with them. And they say, we take it after an intercourse. And I very often ask them, do you know what are the repercussions of repeating this medicine month after month? So, and their answer is that we'll see what to do. So this is another characteristic of the adolescent age, not taking things very seriously and the risk-taking capacity, avoiding reality. That's one thing. You will be surprised how many girls I have for counseling who have gone through abortion, and ultimately they said, first time I was scared, but the third time I'm not.
But this is not okay on their part, on their head. There are many problems they can suffer later on in their life.
When the uterus health and uterus hygiene goes down, because associated with it are STDs, sexually transmitted diseases. Associated with it is also cervix cancer. Associated with it is also HIV, which we see so often that there are multiple partners and that the adolescents are not having safe sex. That the suicide rate is not only with the girl who is pregnant, but her mother also. They have more pregnancy complications like pregnancy-induced hypertension or anemia, as I said already, will have a problem with them. They would also suffer from intrauterine growth restriction. In utero, the baby is not getting proper nutrition and stops growing. Their pelvis, their bones are not fully developed. So they can have cephalopelvic disproportions, and then when they abort, they have a high risk of having infections, blood loss, anemias, all kinds of problems. They have a very high perinatal morbidity and mortality.
Now, when you have a teenage pregnancy, there will be more premature deliveries, there will be more low birth weight infants. The mother may not have a hemoglobin of more than 12, which is a fundamental that by age 12, every girl should have a hemoglobin of more than 12. They will have septic abortions, they will have unsafe abortions. In fact, 3 million girls between 15 to 19 undergo unsafe abortions.
These children which are the product or born out of this teenage pregnancy are less likely to enter into education system.
How come?
Because it is the the circumstances doesn't allow them to go freely for education. There is no encouragement. Rather, they are discouraged and they are not fully accepted by the other members of the society. That is hesitation. So the victims prefer to leave the education rather than continue. Then there is also that depends on publicly funded care,
which leads to it becomes number 2 cause of mortality in teenagers, the unsafe abortions.
And many complications they have to suffer.
All types of complications, whether it is hypertension, toxemia, death. The maximum which is the most dangerous complication is death, because you can end up into a death. So this is a matter of concern, and this pattern is also seen in Indian with the changing behavior. And the changing behavior is, let's say, the example of 14th of February, Valentine's Day.
So sometimes what we notice, the girl who got pregnant, she has to suffer lots of psychological problems also. What are these?
Absolutely. The girl, first psychological problem is that she doesn't want to tell. So therefore, diagnosis of pregnancy is delayed by 3 months. Most of the time, unless the baby is seen protruding, they don't diagnose. They are afraid. They're afraid of the society. They have guilt. They have shame. They can go into depression, they can go into anxiety, they can even have suicidal tendencies. So it is an extreme degree of a mental stress a girl goes through. And because there is no education.
Sometimes they are under the under the effect of the drugs and all. They fail in using such items.
Absolutely. So all types of behavioral changes, whether they are drugs, whether they are alcohol, whether they are date rape drugs, which is now common, and they all get indulged into a unsafe sex.
It is not merely the individual suffering, but the nation also to have a loss.
Their contribution to the nation is almost
negative
rather
we cannot
than zero.
expect to contribute them. So they are not only economically, but also on the other hand, it becomes a burden, economic burden.
So, but on what basis you are saying this thing? Is there any support to your statements?
Yes, of course. There are many supporting evidences, but let me tell you one of them, quote, eliminating births to unmarried women under 18 reduces the number of women 20 to 29 receiving AFDC by 17% and reduces public sector cost for them by $9 billion. Reducing the fertility of teens under age 18 by 50% reduces the number receiving AFDC by 14% and reduces public sector cost by $72 billion. So you can get a clear-cut picture from the statement here itself.
Christina Dias is an assistant professor of sociology whose research interests lie at the intersection of social stratification, Latin American migration and family formation. She wrote in one of her articles, "By the time a young woman becomes pregnant, there are already factors from social-economical background that influence her experience. There are all these underlying issues that happened before pregnancy. Attending low-quality school, living in poor neighborhood, living in high-poverty context, so that the teen pregnancy is just one single issue," she said. The situation does not end here, but they are further disowned by the society, which creates lonely situations for mother and child, leading to teen mothers' colonies, which end up in lacking confidence to live healthy financial life. Poverty soon takes the charge and forces the victims towards prostitution.
To convey the message that these kind of kids and the parents both are isolated in the society, and then they suffer sequence of problems.
Of course, it is not isolated physically, they remain within the society, but socially they are isolated. Means they are not freely accepted by the other members of the society. So everyone will, raise their fingers on them. So the best way for them, they either remains away from the school or somehow to manage, and if they manage, they cannot go for the, again there is the constraint of the finance. So since they are left, the parents also leaves them. So that way it's a big problem, and in later life they become, because of less education, less skill, they become unemployed, and when unemployed, obviously in later part of their life, for their survivals, they enters into the criminal activities. It is not only the mother and the child, even in subsequent period we find such kind of things goes on in a cyclic order. The child again in her part becomes teenage mother, and then again the cycle goes on.
What teenage mom leaves for her successor or the kids is nothing but a vicious circle of teen pregnancies. According to news published in UK by Nicole Martin on 8 September 2000, children from broken home are twice as likely to have sex before the age of 16 than those living with both parents. Teen moms are themselves not mature enough to take care of the responsibilities of a family, which is somewhere breaking the family structures and leaving their kids into an unhealthy surroundings, which further leads to unhealthy habits and unhealthy upbringing, hampered mental growth, and eventually broken families. All these further leads to crimes and prostitution.
Sex very casually, and this casual sex may be casual in intent, but it is very serious in consequence. So that way we need to stop, we need to have some kind of alternative, and I think Parents Worship Day is one of the befitting alternatives that not only stops, rather develop a good society where the children can be nurtured according to the customs of the society and can prove themselves to be the good citizens of the country.
Now these teen pregnancies are resulting mainly from the premarital sex amongst teenagers. Premarital sex has been morally unacceptable in almost every human society that regards marriage as a legitimate requirement for sexual behavior. In recent report released by Center of Study of Adolescence in Kenya 2007, the age of sexual debut is now at an all-time low of between 8 and 12 years. Young people had sex before they reached the age of 20. This increases the chances of unwanted pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases. Also, the consequences of premarital sex leads to sexually transmitted diseases as well as HIV are higher for females. UNICEF 2004. Modern society is becoming loose because people are doing things in different ways, such as premarital sex is becoming more rampant. That is, existing or spreading everywhere in a way that cannot be controlled. Youth who feel unloved or unappreciated are more likely to see comfort in sexual relationship. UNICEF 1998 in Africa estimated that 2 lakh lives were lost as a result of conflict and war. AIDS killed 2.2 million people. The disease is now the leading killer in the world. In sub-Saharan Africa, it has killed 16.3 million lives since the epidemic began. A premarital sex case has recently spurred a major concern among the youth. This is a common question among the teenagers and engaged couples. Data from 2002 survey conducted in Owerri, southeastern Nigeria by Center for Reproductive Health indicated that by age 20, 77% of respondents had premarital sex. Even among those who abstained at least until age 22, 81% has had premarital sex by age 44. Among others of women turning 15 between 1964 and 1993, at least 91% has had premarital sex by age 30. Among those turning 15 between 1954 and 1963, 82% has had premarital sex by age 30, and 88% had done so by age 44.
Means you want to convey a message that the teen age are the more sufferers after the Valentine Day, the traditional Valentine Day the people were celebrating till now.
Yes, because once they enter into this premarital sex, they obviously premarital sex and the teenage pregnancy that results into such kind of problems which are very not only vital, becomes fatal, and obviously it pollutes the society.
Are there any other more
Yeah, there are a number of other problems also which we find that these teenage mothers encounters during their later life. Those are like that of, they have difficulties in bonding with their babies. Then there are the cases of overwhelming fatigue, feeling of worthlessness, anxiety, panic attack, and then and there are also cases where we find even they goes to the extent of thinking of harming themselves or even to their babies also. Those are the extreme cases. So obviously it is very, very harmful to the society, and they have such kind of problems which are very...
So all these are a social burden to the nation and also the world. This report also says that these people are more prone for suicide and the depression. Now next we'll see how much percentage had more attempts of suicide. It has been said that they have compared the depression and sexual activity between who are sexually active and who are not sexually active. Around increase of 17.6% of depression seen in the teenage group with sexually active. So that means 25% had depression with sexual activity and 7.7% in not sexually active. This is in girls. In boys, increase of 4.9% by indulging in sexual activity. They have seen.
Graph shows probability of having sex by ages for male and female. STIs patient suffers mental and psychological illness. According to UNICEF report, suicidal tendency of teenagers are on higher scale. How these STIs can be prevented?
How many people had pain? How many people had, say, urethral discharge or vaginal discharge? But how would you quantify the financial losses, the days of work, and more importantly, the irreparable damage these STDs have on mental health?
So it is believable that teenage mothers suffer physically a lot. Do you want to convey a message that they suffer mentally also?
Yes, there is mental suffering also. We find a number of cases of depression, development of suicidal tendency, and
but this though we notice in the mature age people also.
Yes, it is there, but if we look into the research reports, I have got a research report that will support my statement, where we find that it is more prevalent among the teenage mothers. Let me tell you what the study says.
Sure, sir.
The research published in the journal Pediatrics studied more than 6,000 Canadian women ranging in age from adolescent to adults. The researchers found that girls ranging from 15 to 19 years experienced postpartum depression at a rate that was twice as high as women aged 25 and older. So, this is twice. Likewise, another study reported that teen mothers face significant level of stress that can then lead to increased mental health concerns. In addition to higher rates of postpartum depression, teenage mothers have higher rate of depression. So, it is for teenage mothers, the suffering is more
higher than
that of the normal matured mothers.
That she can't face the world, what is society going to say, and she doesn't want the daughter to get an abortion done, she just wants to kill her and kill herself. But you have no idea what is the incidence of bipolar depressive disorder mania. So mania is so high in its prevalence, and what is that manic reaction? You're charged, you're overstimulated, so you talk more, walk more, romance more, sex more, anger more, right? And you don't have control on yourself. So you know that you're doing something which is dangerous. I'm not going to use the word wrong. I will say that you're doing something which is dangerous, and you're doing something which is risky. You're doing something which is not the correct method of doing it because you don't have your contraceptives.
Sometimes they use, but they are
and they fail if they use. And also, let me add up another dimension. You're under the influence of alcohol.
Yes.
You're under the influence of a drug. Or you're under the influence of both. So they react, right? It's served very easily.
Let us see the graph of broken family structure. Because of recent advances in the methods social scientists and economists use to collect data, researchers are taking a broader intergenerational view of America's poor. From this vantage point, it has become clear that federal policies over the past 3 decades have promoted welfare dependency for single-parent families over married parents, while frittering away the benefits of a vigorous free market and strong economy. Today, the economic and social future of children in the poor and middle class is being undermined by a culture that promotes teenage sex, divorce, cohabitation, and out-of-wedlock birth. First marriage, 47%. Married step family 20%. Living with divorced or separated parents 16%. Not with either biological parents 7%. Cohabiting couples 6%. Always single parent 6%. With widowed 1%. You can see the impact of divorce on incomes of families with children on this graph. What depicts in it is average annual income. Let's have a look at the moral values required in a society. Value education empowers the society with better moral conduct.
So could you tell the importance of moral education in the schools?
By value education, we refers to planned educational action aimed at the development of proper attitudes, values, morals, emotions, and characters in the learners. The phrase has a very wide connotations and covers all aspects of personality, be it intellectual, social, moral, aesthetics, or spiritual. The intended intervention can be attempted through the regular curricular and co-curricular activities of the institutions. Extract from the National Education Policy 1986, Chapter 8 of the Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India, 8.4 says, the growing concerns over the erosion of essential values and an increasing cynicism in society has brought to focus the need for readjustment in the curriculum in order to make education a forceful tool for the cultivation of social and moral values. In 8.5 it says, in our culturally plural society, education should foster universal and eternal values oriented towards the unity and integration of our people. Such value education should help eliminate obscurantism, religious fanaticism, violence, superstition, and fatalism. 8.6 Apart from this combative role, value education has a profound positive content based on our heritage, national goals, and universal perception. It should lay primary emphasis on this aspect.
It means we should start this moral education in the entire school system, in the education system, in the schools and college, that we should celebrate this 14th Feb as Parents Worship Day rather than Valentine's Day.
Of course, if it becomes a culture to celebrate it in all the school colleges, I think it is for the betterment of not only for that particular students or the school or college or the institution, but for the entire society in general. It will benefit, definitely it will have benefit. And so it not only benefit, even it integrates the society also. So of course I suggest to have this Parent Worship Day to be celebrated on regular basis by each and every institutions.
The values can be defined as the factors derived for physiological and psychological benefits for individuals, benefits derived for strengthening family relation and social bondage, and the factors that lead to national integration and progress. Just like cement and bricks are inevitable for the construction of bricks, for building a human being, both modern knowledge and value-based knowledge should coexist, integrate, and support each other.
There had been great scholars around the world who emphasized the power of values in human growth and the impact that missing values have on mankind. The strength of nation is ultimately established by character of its citizens and not the material growth. Mahatma Gandhi opines that pleasure without conscience is sin. Gopal Krishna Gokhale stated that knowledge alone can't help humankind unless he builds character. Life can lead to disaster if science is not guided with spiritual knowledge. Intellect divorced from moral and emotion can be injurious to human progress. Inner balance depends on morality, and only moral actions can bring beauty and dignity to life. Communities perish without moral values, and survival is at stake. If character is lost, everything is lost. What world wants is character. Education is all about life building, man making, and character making. Mahatma Gandhi's educational goal was to build character. In the table that you see, you will realize the ideals or the objectives of education that results into the facet of human personality, leads to the universal human values. Objective of knowledge is to impact humans' intellect and lead to truth. Skills are developed so it leads to righteous conducts. When human achieves balance in emotions, it attains peace. The psychological effect of educational vision leads to love. The complete identity is attained when human touches the spiritual facets of its personality and ultimately leading to non-violence and peace. The University Education Commission, headed by Dr. S. Radhakrishnan in 1948-49 in India, strongly recommended the inclusion of religious and moral education at the university level. Indeed, moral, social, and cultural values enter into our lives only as we grow spiritually. Therefore, values are primarily the means for opening the doors of higher, deeper fulfillment or spiritual growth. They are the internal guideposts or links that direct us towards their source, the divinity within us. Hence, the education system should include value education leading to honesty, courage, peaceability, self-reliance and potential, self-discipline and moderation, loyalty and dependability, respect, love, unselfishness and sensitivity, justice and mercy, wisdom, fortitude, self-control, positive attitude, hard work, integrity, gratitude, humility, fidelity and chastity. I quote what Theodore Roosevelt says, quote, "To educate a person in mind and not in morals is to educate a menace to society." Increasing number of people across the ideological spectrum believe that society is in deep trouble. The disheartening signs are everywhere. The breakdown of the family, the deterioration of civility in everyday life, rampant greed at a time when children are poor, an omnipresent sexual culture that fills our television and movie screens with sleaze, beckoning the youth towards sexual activity at ever earlier ages, the enormous betrayal of children through sexual abuse. As we become more aware of this societal crisis, the feeling grows that schools cannot be ethical bystanders. As a result, character education is making a comeback in schools. Character education is as old as education itself. Down through history, education has had two great goals: to help people become smart and help them become good. The very result of value-based education has helped Asian students to be ahead of their counterparts. Studies had shown that Asian students have always been highest achievers in US universities. Asian students on US universities at all-time high. This data is collected from asiantribune.com. In this graph, you can see the percentage of Asian students on higher side, whereas India is the leading place of origin for international students in United States, with 94,563 in 2007 and 2008, an increase of 13% from the previous year. On the other hand, it's shocking to know what Dr. Miriam Grossman wrote in her book, Students' Behavior, Post Getting Sexually Active or Getting Hit by STIs.
Miriam Grossman, she's a clinical psychologist, and she highlights that how she sees these university-going, students who present to her with complaints of poor academic performance. Suddenly, like previous year, they were like in top 3 in the class, and this year they are in the bottom in their scoring. Kids are coming to her, college-going kids are coming to her with complaints of depression.
How do Asian students get to the top of the class? Let us see an article in a book published by Dr. Soo Kim Abood and Jane Kim, Respect Your Elders and Obey Your Parents.
So, this way I find Parents Worship Day is very much beneficial for the society. It keeps the children on track, and as such they are ready, or rather they become the good citizens in future.
Means you wants the word to make us understand that by celebrating this Parents Worship Day, the children are becoming more intelligent, becoming more healthier, and they are very much intelligent and very much near to their bright future. You want to convey this message?
Yeah, of course. There are a number of studies. Jane Kim, who in his book, The Top of the Class, how Asian parents raise high achievers and how you can too. I would like to quote that while Asian Americans, they forms only 4% of the US population, Asian American students make up much higher percentage of students' bodies in top universities around the country. The percentage are astounding: 24% at Stanford, 18% at Harvard, and 25% at both Columbia and Cornell. More Asian Americans over the age of 25 have bachelor's degree and advanced degrees than any other race or ethnic group. And after outperforming their colleagues in the school, Asian Americans also bring home higher incomes than their non-Asian counterparts. Almost $10,000 more annually than the rest of the population. So we cannot deny from the fact that it has so much good impact on the children because of this celebration of Parents Worship Day.
Respect your elders and obey your parents.
It is necessary for the parents to prevent them by teaching abstinence. That is the right kind of education. Until and unless the right kind of education is given to them, they are likely to get deviated from the right track.
Means straight away they are saying no to the kids. They are straight away prohibiting that don't do anything. You are not allowed.
No.
If they are saying prohibiting things, obviously they will learn from somewhere else.
Suppose your child asks you about how to drive a car, then will you teach them how to drive the car immediately?
No, if he's not in a right age, I won't teach him.
Yes, that is right kind of education at the right time. Until and unless they become matured, one should not
parents can play a vital role in by giving teachings to the children concerning this. How they can play an important role? Do you have any evidence concerning this?
Yes, in support of this statement, I can tell you about one of the research which said the recent study of over 400 adolescents clearly showed that that where parents, especially mothers, were the major source of sexual information, their adolescent sexual behavior was less risky. This is quoted from Delorio C., Kelly M. and Hockenberry Eaton M. From the article Communication About Sexual Issues, Mothers, Fathers and Friends, Journal of Adolescent Health in the year 1999. Another evidence can be seen through the article where it is mentioned that those adolescents who reported discussing a greater number of sex-based topics with their mothers were more likely to express conservative attitudes about sex and were less likely to have engaged in it. Doctors promoting abstinence for teenagers should encourage parents to talk with their children about sex and be able to recommend resources to help them to do so.
According to CDC, and also I think if we use the ancient wisdom, abstinence is the 100% effective way to eliminate the risk of acquiring a sexually transmitted disease. Another way of not having an STD is to be like married couples do. They are in a monogamous relationship with each other, and if either of the partners or couples, like husband and wife, if they don't have a sexually transmitted disease, that's another way of not having STD is to be in a monogamous relationship when either of the partners are not infected with an STD, like a married couple.
We agree that by doing Parents Worship Day, so we can cut short a lot of money, that is funds raised by many organizations, many countries towards controlling the sexually transmitted disease or teenage pregnancies or for the depression, suicide attempts. All these can be controlled by just doing a single program that is nothing but Parents Worship Day, which involves the expression of love towards parents and maintaining the sexual conduct code, that is delaying a sexual activity and understanding the family values, spiritual values and also social values. So it avoids a lot of contraception, pills, and also we can avoid all this pornography and sexual industrial complex can be overcome by doing Parent Worship Day, which is a very spiritual program. So mother and father regarded as gods.
While talking about the spiritual, modern and other practices, one of the important practice followed in ancient area was continence. However, there is false phobia created around the world with respect to that. There is a remarkable similarity of chemical composition between the semen and the central nervous system, both being especially rich in lecithin, cholesterol and phosphorus compounds, which would indicate that seminal emissions withdraw from the body substances necessary for the nutrition of nervous tissues. Excessive voluntary seminal losses through masturbation, coitus interruptus and contraceptive practices are debilitating and harmful to the body and brain. Excessive involuntary seminal losses through nocturnal emissions, diurnal emissions, spermatoria, etc. are debilitating to the nervous system and may cause neuroasthenia. Observations of the immediate effects of the sexual orgasm indicate that it temporarily exhausts the nervous system and when repeated too frequently leads to chronic nerve weakness, Sexual neurasthenia. Continence is beneficial to the brain, for conserved lecithin from retained semen is a true brain food. Hence, some of the greatest intellectual geniuses in ancient and modern times, these include Pythagoras, Plato, Aristotle, Leonardo da Vinci, Spinoza, Newton, Kant, Beethoven, Herbert Spencer, etc.
So do you want to convey a message that children should control their senses? Though the sexual desire is almost like hunger and thirst, we should be satisfied first.
No, sexual desire is not like hunger and thirst, because if hunger and thirst is not quenched for several days, a person will die. But if sex desire is not satisfied for years, he remains alive. So it's not like that. There are a number of geniuses who didn't satisfy their sexual desires but have become prominent personalities. Like Plato, Aristotle, Vinci, Bacon, Newton, Kant, and Spencer, and many others. And even there is a study which supports this statement. Let me tell you. The noted psychologist Marshall, in his book Introduction to Sex Physiology, points out the need for such restraints over the reproductive function and the sublimation of sex energy into higher cerebral forms of expression, as was the case with many intellectual geniuses of the past who led continent lives. The sexual energy must be transmuted into spiritual energy or ojas shakti. If the sexual energy is transmuted into ojas or spiritual energy by pure thoughts, it is called sex sublimation in Western psychology. Sublimation is not a matter of suppression or repression, but a positive, dynamic and conversion process. It is the process of controlling the sex energy, conserving it, then diverting it into higher channels, and finally converting it into spiritual energy, that is ojas shakti. The material energy is changed into spiritual energy, just as heat is changed into light and electricity. Ojas is spiritual energy that is stored up in the brain. By entertaining sublime, salivating thoughts of the self or the Atman, by meditation, japa, worship and pranayam, the sexual energy can be transmuted into ojas shakti and stored up in the brain. This stored up energy can then be utilized for divine contemplation and spiritual pursuit.
Let us see a living example of continence in celibacy. Mr. Virendra Mehta, who acquired a place in Limca Book of World Record for his memory power.
मैंने किस पेज से ये वर्ड पढ़ा है, ये भी बता सकता हूँ कि मैंने किस पेज नंबर से ये वर्ड लर्न किया था.
क्या बात है.
And the secret behind all these achievements is celibacy, brahmacharya. And I remember when I was on the show that I was recalling, the words from my photographic memory. Then this brahmacharya helps me a lot, right? Now I would like to share the general information regarding the celibacy. A tree draw the essence or rasa from the earth. This essence is circulated, throughout the tree. Its wings, branches, leaves, flowers and fruits, the shining colors and life in the leaves of flowers and the fruits are due to this rasa. Similarly, the virya that is manufactured by the cells of the testes out of blood gives color and vitality to the human body and its different organs. Semen is the quintessence of food or blood. One drop of semen is manufactured out of 40 drops of blood according to the modern medical sciences. And according to Ayurveda, it is elaborated out of the 80 drops of blood. The two testes or seeds that are located in the scrotal bag are called secretory glands. And the cells of these testes have been endowed with the peculiar property of secreting semen from the blood. Just as the bees collect honey, in the honeycomb and drop by drop, so also the cells of the testes collect semen drop by drop from the blood. Then the fluid is taken by the two ducts or tubes to the vesiculoseminoles, and under excitement it is thrown out by the special ducts called ejaculatory ducts into the urethra, where it is mixed with the prostatic juice. Okay, and the eminent European medical man also support the statement of the yogins of India. Dr. Nicole says it is a medical and psychological fact that the best blood in the body goes to form the elements of reproduction in both the sexes, and in a pure and orderly life this matter is reabsorbed. It goes back into circulation, ready to turn the tiniest brain, nerve and the muscular tissues. Thus the vital fluid of man carried back and diffused through his system makes him manly, strong, brave and heroic. If wasted, it leaves him effeminate, weak and physically debilitated, and prone to sexual irritation and disordered function. Irrational nervous system, epilepsy and the various other disease and death. The suspension of the use of the generative organs is attended with a notable increase of bodily and mental and spiritual vigor. Right, and if the spermatic secretion in man is continuous, right, then it must either be expelled or to be reabsorbed. And as a result of the most patient and preserving scientific investigation, it has been found that whenever the seminal secretions are conserved and thereby reabsorbed into the system, it goes towards enriching the blood and strengthening the brain. And Dr. Lois thinks that the conservation of the element is essential to strengthen the body, vigor of the mind, and the keenness of the intellect. Another writer, Dr. E.P. Miller, says all waste of spermatic secretions, whether voluntary or involuntary, is a direct wastage of the life force. It is almost universally considered that the choicest elements of the blood enters into the composition of the spermatic secretion.
I add a big example of continence and celibacy, and that is Swami Vivekananda. He was an Indian Hindu monk, a chief disciple of the 19th century Indian mystic Ramakrishnan. He was a key figure in the introduction of the Indian philosophies of the Vedanta and Yoga to the Western world, and is credited with the rising interfaith awareness, bringing Hinduism to the status of a major world religion during late 19th century. This one incident that explains his memory power due to celibacy and continence is what follows. This one incident that explains his memory power due to celibacy and continence is as follows. He had begun reading newly edition of Encyclopedia Britannica. His disciple, Sharat Chandra Chakraborty, seeing one day those 25 large volumes, remarked, "It is difficult to master the contents of so many volumes in his life." He did not know that at that time the Swami had already finished 10 volumes and was reading the 11th. "What do you mean?" said Swami. "Ask me whatever you like from these 10 volumes and I can tell you all about it." The disciple, out of curiosity, brought down the books and asked him many questions on difficult subjects, selecting 1 or 2 from every volume. Not only did Swami answer the questions, displaying a vast amount of even technical knowledge, but in many instances he quoted the very language of the book. The disciple was astounded at the extraordinary grasp and memory of his guru and exclaimed, "This is beyond the power of man." The Swami then told him that there was nothing miraculous about it. That if one observes the strictest brahmacharya, one could retain and reproduce exactly what one has heard or read, but once, even if years ago. For lack of his brahmacharya, he added, "We as a nation are becoming poorer and poorer in strength and intellect and are losing our manhood." Bhishma said, "The worship of mother, father and preceptor is most important according to me. The man who attends to that duty here succeeds in acquiring great fame and many regions of felicity. Worship with respect by thee, whatever they will command thee, be it consistent with righteousness or inconsistent with it, should be done unhesitatingly. O Yudhishthira, one should never do what they forbid. Without doubt, that which they command should always be done." According to UK journalist Sunanda Tanwar, Asaram Bapu is great philosopher, social worker and humanitarian. He has worked tirelessly all his life for Hindu culture and Sanatan Dharma. He wrote more than 100 books, opened Bal Sanskar Kendra for kids, more than 17,000 samitis, gaushalas, and has always been working for welfare of poor. The amount of work Bapuji has done for welfare of poor in India, if any European would have done same work, he would have got Nobel Prize by now.
कोई ईसाई नहीं चाहता कि मेरी कन्या 13 साल में गर्भवती हो जाए स्कूल जाते जाते। कोई मुसलमान नहीं चाहेगा कि मेरी कन्या कुंवारी कन्या हवस के शिकारियों की शिकार हो जाए, और कोई यहूदी पारसी नहीं चाहेगा कि मेरा पुत्र अथवा पुत्री विकारों के शिकार हो जाए। वैलेंटाइन डे के बाद माता पिता का पूजन, बस इसलिए मैंने ढूंढा कि माता पिता वैसे ही बच्चों पर मेहरबान होते हैं, लेकिन जब माता पिता का कोई बच्चा कहता है माँ तुम मेरी है, तो माँ के खुशी का ठिकाना नहीं रहता। पापा मैं तुम्हारा हूँ, पिताजी तुम मेरे, तो पिताजी के आनंद का दरिया उमड़ता है। लेकिन जब माता पिता का पूजन करेंगे तो पिताओं का अंतरात्मा और माताओं का अंतरात्मा बच्चों पर बरसेगा और बच्चे होनहार होंगे। ऐसे सज्जन आत्माएं भी तो उन्हीं माताओं की संतान है। नारायण। इसलिए मैंने वैलेंटाइन डे का विरोध नहीं, लेकिन वैलेंटाइन डे के कुप्रभावों से बचकर माता पिता का सत्कार करके, और सभी संतानें चाहे हिंदुस्तान की हो चाहे विश्व के ब्रह्मांड के किसी भी कोने की हो, सभी बालक बालिकाएं उन्नत हो और सभी माता पिता प्रसन्न हो।
It is a truism that social problems can only be understood in context. But the particular difficulty of teen pregnancy issues is that context has changed so rapidly and radically that analysis and policy response can easily be outdated, and it is further sources of turbulence and controversies that the world in which many of today's teenagers are growing up is very different from the world which shaped the adolescence of most of today's policymakers. The forces that have brought about such radical changes are well documented and included the spread of cheap, safe and effective contraception liberalization of abortion law, the progress made by women towards educational and career equality, the widespread rejection of traditional sexual codes, and the emergence of more sexualized society as old taboos have fallen away and sexual imagery and messages have limited the information of environment. Governments can destroy the values, but they cannot revive it. Only saints can revive the destroyed values and save the nation from big disasters through such initiative like Parents' Worship Day. Here we can say that the Parents' Worship Day can strengthen the traditional sexual code, protect our nation from such insoluble problems. Government should not create hurdles in works of such saints who actually bring the nation out of big problems. Government should assist such saints if it wants the nation to prosper.
Remember, the most glorious and noble blessing in the world should be received from our parents by serving, caring and protecting them till their last breath. That is our duty, responsibility and privilege. The most precious relation is the relation of husband and wife, which should be nurtured till the end of life. Learning, teaching and sharing the experiences and value of our relatives in the family are divine opportunity, which should be fully utilized through. Values which strengthen parental relation. Remember, the parental relation is the most sacred relation the nature bestowed upon us. Know that the actual owner of our body is our parents. The status of our parents is clearly described in India as Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava. Let our mother become divine and father become divine. The parental relation should be maintained and preserved till their last breath. Remember that they gave birth to us, nurtured us, wiped our tears, and spent long years of time and energy in bringing us. And they never accounted anything, and they never asked anything back for the pain that they suffered for. They enjoyed each minute of time spending with us. They prayed to all gods for our betterment and progress. We have learned from them how to walk, how to talk, how to smile and how to eat, everything. And they taught us the experience of love, affection and respect. Remember, a day will come when we have to look after them. When old age attacks, they will become weak, sick and tired, and they will need our all-round support, even for walking. We should support, console, build confidence, feed and entertain them as they expect from us. The most horrible fear in our life is the fear of death. Be with our parents when they bid goodbye to this world forever. Give them support, strength and confidence in their last moment. Keep their head on your lap in their last moment. Know that once they will disappear from this world, you will not be able to see them. You will not be able to talk to them. You will not be able to live with them. Departure is permanent. Know that the blessing of your parents is the noble and the most glorious blessing in this world, which will protect you wherever you are. Remember, a day will come when we will all go to the same bed, when we will become aged. Whatever we have done to our parents, we are going to receive from our children. Action and reaction is a nature's law, not Newton's law. Hence, maintain parental bondage strong, stronger and strongest.